So I would like to just thank everyone for joining us here tonight for our SPF Restart Plan conversation. My name is Joan Mast. I am the Superintendent of Schools, and I am happy to bring clarification for our restart plan this evening. Thank you to the community members who are here, the administrators who will be providing parts of this presentation, the teachers who are listening in, as well as our board members. Our board members have been engaged in this process, and tonight they're listening both as parents and as board members. Tonight's presentation is to provide clarification to the district's restart and recovery plan. This is not a public board meeting, rather an information presentation in response to questions that parents have submitted. We were going to initially do a Zoom call, which would have been more interactive. However, the quantity of people who are interested in joining us tonight made us find another option on presenting. So we are here on this live stream Google Meet, and this way we didn't have an upper limit who could listen in. The presentation is designed to answer the majority of the questions that have been raised by the parents in the form that you submitted yesterday. We are going to also have follow-up sessions at our building levels with the principals, because some of those questions are very specific to the schools. So I think at the end of this evening, many of your questions will be answered, but the conversation will be ongoing. So Noelle Baxter is going to discuss the next slides regarding the type of plans that we are going to be implementing. Noelle is our social studies supervisor, and she is also our professional development coordinator. Noelle?
So the restart plan for our district this year will give families two options for the type of learning that they think will be best suited for their children and for their families this year. The first option is the hybrid model. A hybrid model will include both in-person instruction as well as online instruction from home. So in the hybrid model, we have students will be divided into two cohorts. One of the cohorts will be designated as the blue group, and they will attend school in person on Mondays and Tuesdays. The other group will be the red group, and they'll attend school in person on Thursdays and Fridays. At the elementary level, the blue group and the red group will also attend in person on alternating Wednesdays. When those students who are in the hybrid model are not attending school in person, they're going to participate in their classes from home via video conferencing tools, Google Classroom, and other digital tools. So when students are not in school, they still will be engaging with their teachers and their peers as though they were in school, but they will be doing that through a virtual platform. For students who choose the fully remote online model, they'll participate in all of their classes with their teacher and their classmates through those digital tools every day. So they'll participate in all of their classes, they will receive the same lessons, and they will engage in the same activities as the students who are in the hybrid model. They will simply be engaging with those activities through the video conferencing or Google Classroom all of the time, and they will not attend any in-person instruction. We're asking each family to carefully think about the model that's going to work best for you and your family. There are lots of different things to be considered, and we hope that we're going to provide you with that information tonight to help you make your decision. We are asking that each family please complete the survey to select a model by this Thursday at noon so that we can begin assigning those cohorts for the students who will be coming in person and create the class lists. If you are interested in starting in the hybrid model, some of you might be wondering if you would be able to switch to the virtual model at any time, and that change will be easy for us to accommodate. So if you begin the school year in the hybrid model and decide that the fully remote online model is better for you, you can make that change. However, if you want to start the year in the virtual model and decide that you would like your child to come in person for those 2 to 3 days a week, we will require some advance notice to the principal so that we can make those accommodations for where we can place your child. These plans, of course, are going to be monitored and adjusted consistently, and we'll have to make those changes as necessary or is required by the directives that we receive from the state. We also want families to be aware that at any time schools are subject to closure based on the directives from the Department of Health. At that time, all of our students would participate in the fully remote online learning model. So just as I mentioned before, students who are participating in that model 5 days a week will still be engaging with their teacher and with their classmates during the regular school day via the different digital tools that we mentioned. If schools are closed, all students will participate in their classes in those platforms. This is a sample calendar just to show you sort of visually the days of the week that different cohorts would be coming to school. So you can see that Mondays and Tuesdays are reserved for the blue cohort, Thursdays and Fridays are reserved for the red cohort, and then Wednesdays would alternate. In weeks where there are only 4 days a week, then each cohort would come for 2 days of that week. And now Dr. Mass is going to give a little bit more of the thinking behind why we chose the models that we chose.
Thank you, Noelle. So why the hybrid model? This has been a big question among everyone, among our teachers, among our administrators, and among our parents. When we first started to choose a model, we were really hopeful that we could, at the elementary level, bring all the students back. That's what the teachers wanted to do. That's what the principals wanted to do. That was certainly what I wanted to do. And I know many parents would want to do that as well. The biggest question was, could we do it safely? And as we started to do the plan, we recognized that it was impossible to bring all of our students back and maintain the safety guidelines and the standard of care that was given to us by the New Jersey Department of Education. So we know that the things that will keep our students safe, our teachers safe, our administrators safe, and our parents and families safe is if we maintain the 6-foot social distancing, if we're having everyone wear masks, if we're maintaining hand hygiene. And those are the things that we needed to focus on. And we knew we could only do it by bringing half of our students back. And then the question was, how could we bring half the students back at a time? And we chose the 2-day model with the 2 days and then the 3-day cohort that flips every other week, because we knew that students would be engaged in learning all day, either with the teacher or at home, and it would keep the classroom experience near point. We felt like the timing of a student being away for weeks at a time, if they were on 1 week and off the following week, it would be too much of a distance. So we felt like this kept our students closest to the teacher, closest to the peers, and as close to a live classroom experience as possible. The other consideration was busing, that we need to also maintain social distancing guidelines on the buses as much as possible, and that too became a challenge. There were some districts who were able to choose other models because they did not need to consider busing. We also were using as a parameter that students and families would all have the same schedule with siblings. We thought that that would be an important variable to work out for the case of just transporting students as well as providing students support at home. In addition, we really felt like the model that we chose would model the student's schedule and learning experience regardless of the mode, because we were told by the Department of Education, and we understand just by the conditions that we're living in, that we have to be ready to pivot. We have to be nimble in the plan, which sounds like very active words, but all of these words are very inconvenient for everyone. When you have a plan in place, you're told that you have to be ready to pivot. That means you're going to have to change and disrupt. So what we wanted to do in our change and disruption that's predicted to happen is to make it as seamless as possible. So right now with the hybrid plan, the schedule that students have, whether they're home or they're online, they will have that same schedule if they're totally virtual, or they will have that same schedule when the day we all long for to come back full time happens. So students will be having a very similar structured learning experience. So in addition, we have the single session day, and that's a 4-hour day. We had that choice because we cannot serve lunch. As everyone knows, in New Jersey, restaurants are not opened, and school cafeterias, school classrooms, if we were eating in there, are like mini restaurants, and it is not safe in this situation. The other big advantage of this plan is the fact that we are maximizing the amount of in-person instruction, based on the restrictions that we're given to work within. So Dr. Weatherall is going to highlight and give you a sense of what the day will look like. Though we started this work in the spring, we have learned a lot from what we did in an emergency situation. And this work continues, but this is what a typical day could look like. Dr. Weatherall? You're muted.
That was embarrassing. So I'm going to talk about the typical day, what it looks like at home and at school. So we talk about the morning. Students come into school and they unpack and they get ready for the day. At the same time, the students at home get dressed, they finish their breakfast, they set up their computer or their iPad, and they log on and they're ready. So then we go live. Right around 8:45, the teacher's going to start a morning meeting. Our classes start with morning meeting every day to talk about the day's schedule, build community. Students have an opportunity to share. Sometimes at the younger grades, they're going to talk about the calendar, maybe patterns they see, how many days we've been in school, and talk about the weather. And we make a lot of connections. So that live morning meeting will then lead into a live lesson. So the sample here has reading first. All of our lessons on every subject start with a mini lesson. It's usually about 5 to 10 minutes, and each of those mini lessons will be live. So let's look at a reading lesson. Let's say the teacher's going to read a story and she wants to talk about how characters change throughout a story. So she'll pick maybe one of my favorite stories called Sylvester the Magic Pebble, and she'll read that story to the class, and she'll talk about how the character changed from the donkey to a rock and then back to a donkey who really appreciated the important things in life. So the teacher will read that story and she'll model the skill of learning how characters change. She'll make connections to what the kids have learned before, and she'll talk about the new learning about learning how characters change. Then the teacher's going to say, okay, now it's your turn. You're going to take your reading book and you're going to see if you can find where characters change in your reading, and you're going to do this independently. So in the classroom, the students would open up their reading book, and at home, the students would open up their book. Now, I would think that kids would probably just stay on the Google Meet, mute themselves, and it'll be muted in the classroom as opposed to logging on and off. And they would just slide their computer to the side, and they could have their book in front of them, and they could read their book looking for how characters change. And when time is up, the teacher would come back onto the Google Meet, and maybe there'll be a timer or a signal for everybody to come back together, and they could share what they learned when they were doing their independent reading. Also, what could go on in the classroom during that independent time is maybe the teacher's going to pull a small group and teach a quick guided reading lesson or have individual reading conferences. So that goes on throughout the day, and right after that reading share, maybe we'd slide right into a mini lesson for writing, and it would follow the same pattern. We could also have some of the writing conferences or reading conferences during the 2 to 3 o'clock virtual sessions. So the day would continue with word study, and then a similar activity would happen in math. We'd have a math message, a live mini lesson, some independent practice where the student could then move their computer again, move to the side, and then come back for a closure activity. And then let's say it's art day. The art teacher will come into the classroom and teach the art lesson, again, starting with a mini lesson with maybe a demonstration of what's going on in art, and then students would have an opportunity to work independently and then come back together to share science and social studies, and then also some social emotional learning activities to, again, help our students and build some community. Some other things that might happen during the day, let's say in kindergarten, play is a big aspect of our kindergarten program. So there might be an opportunity for what we call choice time that happens in the classroom where students get to work in centers. So that would be an opportunity for the students to go and have some free play time at home. What would happen right before the choice time is the teacher would have a quick mini lesson and they maybe plan what they're going to do during their choice time. They would have a certain amount of time to play, and then they would come back and they would share what they had done. We'll also have some mask and snack breaks throughout the day, and that'd be another opportunity for the students who are learning at home to take a break, step away from the computer, and come back. We know that it's difficult with all these times for some of our young students who don't know how to tell time. So we can have some timers set up on the teacher's computer, and then when the timer goes off, it's time to come back. Or maybe a timer at home could something that could be helpful for students to help budget their time. So there's a typical day, both in school and outside of school, happening at the same time.
With the schedule, we need to ensure that every student has an equal opportunity to access learning. This school year, thanks to the planning of our Board of Education, every student will receive a device to assist the remote, and a one-to-one initiative will enable all kindergarten students to receive an iPad and all students in grades 1 to 4 to receive a Chromebook. Students will use these devices to log on to Google Classroom every day, whether they are at home or in school. Therefore, students should bring their device and charger to and from school each day. Families shared questions after the plan was distributed about how the remaining hour of the school will be spent when all students are home. So the schedule that Dr. Wetherell shared is the single session day, but every student will also be required to work during this time, during the hour at the end of the day. And it will include either Google Meets with teachers for additional instruction or working on assigned tasks. Every student will experience both additional virtual meetings with teachers and working on assigned tasks independently throughout the week. Teachers will, of course, take into account age-appropriate tasks as well, and the time of day to support learners at every grade level.
Thank you, Dr. Slocum. So there were a lot of questions about health and safety that came out in the parent questionnaire. So I just want to take a couple minutes to talk a little bit about that. So children will be required to wear masks at all times while inside the building. We're also asking all adults to wear masks when they're coming onto our campus. So that would be for drop off and pickup. We will be providing mask breaks scheduled throughout the day. We're going to hope for the best weather in the history of Septembers to get us started so that we can do a lot of these breaks outdoors. You know, just like we would normally if children need additional supports or additional, movement breaks, we figure out a way to do that. If kids need additional breaks for their mask, we're going to be working to provide that as well. We're going to be doing snack outside, weather permitting. So again, everybody do a good weather dance for September so that we can have those outdoor opportunities as much as possible. So when will I find out what days my child will attend school? I've spent the last 2 days pretty much exclusively on the phone with parents, and I think my colleagues have as well, and that is by far the biggest question that comes up. So the message is, the sooner people fill out that survey, the sooner we can get started doing the work of putting people into cohorts. We know from any time we send anything out from schools that there's always some folks that might need a gentle reminder. So we'll be starting those really quickly to get that information as quickly as we can. We're going to be looking then to see who are the families that have decided to do the exclusive virtual model versus those that are doing hybrid. We look then to balance our classes based on a whole variety of factors, including race, ethnicity, gender, just match with students and teachers, and input from parents. Families will be notified of those cohort decisions, hopefully the week of the 24th. And earlier if we can get everybody to complete their surveys. So big takeaway for tonight: complete your surveys, go tell your neighbors to complete their surveys. and let's get that information in as quickly as possible. Then we do the other interesting work, which is finalizing class lists and teacher assignments, and we hope to get that information to everybody sometime in that week of the 31st. So if the number one question was, when do I find out what cohort, I'm going to be in number two question of the moment is there any flexibility there? And the answer is maybe. So, you can certainly make those requests, and we as principals take all of them seriously. We listen to them all, and then we do our best to accommodate where we can. But as Dr. Mass started the presentation off, all of our decisions are based on health and safety. So while we're certainly going to try to make accommodations where we can't make them and have a result where we have 15 kids in one group and 3 in the other. So we still have to maintain these balances so that we can continue to maintain appropriate distancing for our kids. And then we asked, just like we used to for any parents who were here long enough to remember what AM and PM kindergarten was like, we always ask that you're only making these requests if it's truly, truly, absolutely necessary. The AM, PM requests used to be for all sorts of reasons, but this time, we're really hopeful that people will only be making requests for consideration if it's absolutely necessary. And again, please keep in mind this work of establishing the cohorts is quite a bit of work. And so these requests, because we do take them all seriously and we'll take each one into consideration, they do require time to look at how it ripples out. If we do this, when we get the requests, how we're able to accommodate them, what kind of impacts does it have on the balance that we're trying to strike with the number of kids that are in each of the cohorts, is all going to kind of slow things down a little bit. So I just, in closing on that third bullet, I would ask you to review the second bullet again. Oh, we need Mrs. Halbert to unmute.
Sorry, we can't read my lips. Thank you, Mr. Bortnick. So just as we are planning protocols for extreme safety in our school buildings, we want to do the same thing for our students who will be traveling to and from school on the bus. So the buses will be cleaned daily with a hospital-grade disinfectant. There will be absolutely assigned seats that are based upon the loading and the unloading according to the routes. And the assigned seats will be placed as far apart as possible based upon the number of students on particular routes. Masks will be required of all students, and depending upon where students get the bus, they may be asked to wear the mask while they're waiting for the bus as well. Windows will be open, weather permitting, and the number of students on each bus will be determined once all the surveys are completed. So just to reiterate, that the response to the surveys are really very, very important. And if you currently have a child who has been taking the bus, making sure that you answer that question very clearly. And so within the school building, we are going to continue to provide students and staff with a number of safety precautions. The hybrid model is going to allow us to limit the number of students in each room during in-person instruction. And so that number will range between 10 and 13 students. Masks must be worn at all times. And as was indicated earlier, there will be scheduled mask breaks. There will also be routine hand washing breaks throughout the day. And we will be practicing social distancing throughout the day as well. Our custodial staff will have very specific cleaning protocols and schedules that they will be required to follow, both after the school day as well as during the school day. We're going to be limiting the number of students who will be in the communal restrooms at any given time. And many of us are using our support staff to monitor the numbers of students in the bathrooms and restrooms. There are currently already in all of our buildings hand sanitizer dispensers in each classroom, as well as throughout the school building. And we are going to be limiting the shared materials and shared spaces in our classrooms. Teachers will be determining how to do that for each of their own classrooms. And then in the classrooms, we will be encouraging teachers to have the windows open as much as possible. And for rooms that do not have windows, we have air purifiers being installed. And we'll also be having the option of having the doors propped open as well, so that we have airflow throughout the day. And Mr. Fiore will be sharing with you how to prepare.
Thank you. So as we've had conversations with parents, a number of them have asked what you can do as parents to help prepare your child for this upcoming experience. And the first thing we would say is to take a big deep breath and stay calm. We all understand and sympathize with everyone that this is a very unique and challenging time. None of us are thrilled about the fact that we have to put together a hybrid model, because I can tell you there's not one teacher in this district or one administrator that does not want to have children in school each and every day throughout the whole day. And to go back, what we remember, back in last September. Unfortunately, we are in the middle of a global pandemic, and we have to try to make the best of a very terrible situation. So when you're having conversations at home amongst adults, we ask for you to try to remember that the children with little ears could be listening, and try to stay positive when they're around. Make sure that they hear your thoughts. If they hear from you, they're going to be able to think about when it's time for them to return to school. So please stay calm and stay positive with them. Remember to start now trying to build mask endurance. My wife and I were actually having conversations with our children today about having them begin to wear masks when we're at home indoors, so that they can get used to the idea of wearing masks for an extended period of time. For any of you who have worked in anywhere where you had to do that, it can be uncomfortable, certainly the first few times that you do it. So we want to be able to build that endurance. Like many of you, I have a Facebook account and social media accounts, and I enjoy going on those accounts and looking at what's on there. But please remember that the best way to seek out information is directly from the source. So we would encourage you to check the district website regularly for information and reach out to your building principal. We are all here and available to speak it to each of you. If you have questions, you have concerns, that is the best place to find your information. And lastly, as you're preparing for the school year, create a learning space in your home for virtual learning. When we were in the virtual learning experience in the springtime, I often said our teachers did a phenomenal job. I could not be more proud of what they were able to accomplish, but we survived virtual learning in the springtime. And now we need to be in a position where we thrive in that environment. And we need your help to do that. So creating a learning space in your home will make that a lot easier. Making sure that our children aren't laying in bed, eating snack throughout the morning. They're sitting up and ready to learn. Find a place that they could sit and use that Chromebook or iPad. Have it be a well-lit area where there's limited distractions as best you can, and make sure that we have supplies available for learning. So all of those things that we can do to help set up a proper learning environment for the kids will go a long way when they have to have that experience to work from home. And then each day, for those children who are in the hybrid model, as they come to school, we need to make sure that we're bringing our device, our Chromebook or iPad, along with the charger in a backpack back and forth to school. There will be times when they're in school where they'll be asked to take out that device and use that device, as the administrators before me explained. So we want to make sure that they have that ability. Bring their headphones and earbuds each day so that they can do so privately and watch videos if they need to watch videos, or listen to a classmate who might be at home sharing ideas is really important. Making sure that they bring a water bottle. They will have opportunities to drink out of the water bottles. We do have water bottle refilling stations throughout the building. But of course, make sure that they're not in the same area as the backpack, because sometimes those water bottles don't get on as tight as we'd like. And as we mentioned earlier, we will be able to have snack if the weather permits. So have the child bring a snack. And then each building will, and every grade level and teacher will work with you as to what school supplies will be needed. But most importantly, make sure that we're setting off children each and every morning with a big smile on their face, very positive, to make sure as they enter the building, they're here ready to learn and excited about the day. And lastly, a few other questions that have come up that really didn't fall into any of the categories that we went over, but we wanted to make sure we touched upon, is what we do if a student or teacher tests positive, and how will parents be notified, and will the school close? And these are questions I think we all have, and the information that we continue to receive evolves and changes, but we will continue to take directive from the county and the town health department as to what their recommendations are for the possibility of a student or a teacher who tests positive, and how we'll notify parents, and whether or not school will close. So we'll look at each of those cases individually and use the directive from our health departments to make the most informed decision regarding that. And the next question that comes up a lot is what type of screening is going to be in place? And although our nurses will be available throughout the day to screen children and check temperatures and things like that, if we feel there's a need to, we'll be asking you as parents to help out. And we'll be asking parents to screen their child prior to entering school each day. We are working currently on the type of plan that we're going to use to make sure that that information's clearly communicated to us. And as soon as we have a final plan on that, we will make sure that we share that information with all of you. Okay, and before I turn it back over to Dr. Mass, one thing I just want to reiterate that Dr. Mass mentioned earlier is that we did our best with the number of questions that we had. There was a large number of questions that were presented, and we thank you for that. And we hope we were able to encompass all of those questions in our presentation tonight. But certainly, if there are things that we did not answer, and you still still looking for a response, please reach out to the building principal. We are all here to try to help you through this. And if there's any questions that we can answer for you, we certainly like to make ourselves available. So thank you. Dr. Mast?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Fiore. So just in closing, the plan that we described to you tonight and has been submitted to the county office awaits approval. And that's where all districts are. Regardless of plans that they've submitted, there are certain guidelines, and if it doesn't meet the criteria that the state has given us, we don't know if all districts will be successful in approving their plan. But what we also know, as I said earlier, is that this year is going to be challenging in ways like Mr. Fiore said, that this and everyone knows this, we are in a world crisis of a global pandemic. And that means that we have to be ready to change. So as we start the year with this plan that we presented tonight, we could have to change in a day. For example, if there was an outbreak in a classroom and a class and a teacher shuts down, that's going to present a challenge for the school as well as the parents having to change the plans that you've already made. This COVID-19 is putting things out of our control. And what we're trying to do is put structures in place to control it the best we can. All of our decisions are based on safety, and all of our decisions are also based on the data available. So we know at the moment, New Jersey's data is in a relatively good place in comparing it to other parts of the country. Though it did take a slightly negative turn, it's on a path back to a positive trajectory, but we also know that that can change. And we have been encouraged by the health officials to watch the data to make our decisions on a day-to-day basis. So in the plan that was submitted to the state, our footer says, to paraphrase, that we will be ready to modify the plan as needed. And we will modify that plan with you, and we will work together. But we do recognize that it isn't easy. But we know that this is going to end, and we want to make sure that we're maintaining our relationships with our teachers, with our administrators, with our parents, that we truly are all in this struggle together. And as Mr. Fiore also emphasize, that we are willing to have the conversations to answer your questions, to best hear your concerns. And certainly we have great empathy for all of the challenges that everyone's facing. So thank you for listening in on this presentation tonight. Thank you for submitting all of your thoughtful questions. I hope the information you heard will help you make your decision and fill out that form so the principals can start scheduling And then we'll be able to give all of our energy to supporting our teachers in creating lessons that will reflect the talent that they have. So thank you again, and have a good night.